Okay, so July 4th, 2025. Something pretty big happened.
hmm This new law, the One Big Beautiful Bill, or OOBBA, was signed.
Right, OBBBA. It's got a big name, and, well, the sources you sent suggest it has even bigger implications.
That's right. It's not just a minor policy shift. It seems poised to affect, well, almost everyone across the country. Your finances could definitely look different.
Yeah, that's what we want to dig into today. We've got this stack of sources you provided, and our job is to, cut through the spin.
Exactly. Unpack its main points, figure out who seems to be gaining.
And who might be paying for it all, and maybe the long-term ripples, too.
Precisely.
Okay, let's unpack this thing.
Where to start? The tax cuts.
Yeah, that seems like the big headline grabber, right?
Yeah.
When you look at the OBBBA, the first thing that jumps out is making those 2017 tax cuts permanent.
Definitely a cornerstone. For individuals, for a lot of businesses, that alone is huge.
But it feels like just the start. The sources mention other, maybe more surprising new deductions.
Oh, absolutely. That's where it gets really interesting. The range of new deductions just for 2025 through 2028 is quite something.
Like what?
Well, we're talking up to $25,000 deductible for tips earned
Wow.
and $12,500 for overtime pay. Even up to $10,000 for interest on car loans, but specifically for cars assembled in the U.S.
Specific targets there. What else?
And there's also the SALT deduction cap that's state and local taxes. It's increased to $40,000 for 5 years.
Okay.
But there's a catch. Only for households earning under $500,000.
Ah, an income limit. Interesting.
And one more big one. A completely new $6,000 deduction aimed squarely at seniors, anyone 65 and older.
That is quite a mix, hitting different groups, different parts of the economy.
It seems designed that way, yes.
But, the sources are really clear this bill isn't only about tax breaks. There's the other side of the ledger.
Correct. Massive budget cuts are a major component.
We're talking, what, Medicaid potentially trimmed by around $1 trillion?
That's the estimate, yes. $1 trillion over the forecast period. And SNAP benefits, food assistance, are also being tightened.
And clean energy took a hit, too.
Significant rollbacks of the Biden-era tax credits for wind, solar, EVs. Quite a shift in direction there.
So, okay, putting it all together, the tax breaks, the deductions, these huge cuts, what does it actually mean for you, the listener,
Right.
who really comes out ahead with this beautiful bill and, well, who maybe doesn't?
Well, looking just at the direct benefits outlined in the sources, high-income earners and corporations certainly gain from the permanent tax cuts and business deductions. That seems clear.
Okay.
But the bill also makes a point of targeting relief lower down the income scale. It explicitly aims to help the middle class.
How so?
Households earning under $100,000, the projections suggest they could see around a 12% tax cut, maybe up to $10,900 per family, depending on specifics.
That's substantial. And the seniors you mentioned.
Yes, for seniors, it's being framed by proponents as, quote, the largest tax break in American history. The goal seems to be shielding something like 88% of seniors from paying taxes on their Social Security benefits.
So on the surface, it sounds like pretty broad relief then.
It certainly has elements designed for broad appeal, yes.
But I sense a but coming. When we connect the dots, looking at the bigger picture, the source is pain.
Well, yeah, there's a significant counter-narrative. Critics raise serious concerns, particularly about its structure. They use the term regressive.
Regressive structure. Okay, what does that mean in this context? Why is that such a major criticism?
Essentially, regressive means the net effect favors the wealthy more than the poor. Critics argue it achieves this by, well, pairing the tax cuts, which naturally benefit higher earners more in dollar terms,
Right.
with deep cuts to social safety net programs, things like Medicaid and SNAP, which disproportionately support lower-income individuals and families.
So the cuts hit one group, the breaks benefit another.
That's the argument. The Medicaid cuts alone, that potential $1 trillion, are projected to risk health coverage for maybe 11 million people.
11 million. Wow.
And the changes to SNAP could, unfortunately, push more families into food insecurity. So combining these effects, some analysts argue it could represent the largest transfer of wealth from the poor to the wealthy in recent U.S. history.
That's a very different picture from just focusing on the tax cuts.
It is
Yeah.
a stark contrast.
And beyond the direct impact on people's wallets and health. What about the national debt? That always comes up.
Absolutely. And the projections here are pretty eye-watering. The bill is expected to add somewhere between $2.8 and $3.3 trillion to the national deficit over the next 10 years.
Trillion with the T, again.
Yes. And if you think about the bigger picture, adding that kind of debt load could fuel inflation, making everything more expensive.
And it puts a bigger burden on future generations, right? They eventually have to deal with it.
Precisely. So while some groups get immediate tax relief, the country as a whole faces, potentially, higher debt, more inflation pressure, and long-term strain on funding for critical services.
So, if we zoom out after this deep dive, we see a bill that seems engineered to give immediate tax relief to quite a few people.
Yes, seniors, many middle-class families, specific types of workers.
And stimulates certain industries like U.S. auto manufacturing, maybe boost defense, and border security spending, which often gets tied into these big bills.
Right, those elements are likely in there too.
But the cost seems significant. Hits to social safety nets, potentially slowing down efforts on climate change with the energy credit rollbacks.
And adding substantially to the national debt. It's a complex equation.
It really lays bare how policy works, doesn't it? These choices inevitably create winners and losers.
They do. And the ripple effects can be unforeseen and last for a very long time.
So for you, listening to this, it really brings up a fundamental question, I think.
Which is?
When you have policies that offer tax relief and maybe some economic stimulus, but they come at the direct expense of social programs, environmental goals, and add to the national debt, what are the true long-term costs?
And ultimately, who ends up shouldering those costs down the road?
Exactly. Definitely something to keep thinking about as you see how this monumental bill actually plays out.